Hello! It has been so long since we have sat and chatted. I think it's been 5 months since I put up a video, period, on here. And it's definitely been a year. I keep trying to work on this vlog, and it started with like 9 hours of footage because it's basically an update on everything that's happened since March of this year. I just decided I haven't really talked about anything that's happened this year, so this is not a year in review, but it is like a let's catch up, let's chat, a little life update. Let's get cozy. I think this one's gonna be a little bit longer. I lit my candle. You may notice I'm in a different space. The colors are perfect. It's so warm, it's so cozy. I love the vibe in here. I'm still figuring out what's gonna happen back here. I don't have a headboard, I don't have a baseboard, I don't have anything for my bed like that. I don't have any fun pillows. I just love the orange. I just love the vibe, especially for fall. I feel like also the wall color, it took forever to do these walls, but it paid off and it's so much cozier. So I think this is gonna be a longer one, a lot to catch up on. Light your candle, make a coffee, have some popcorn, wash your dishes. It's gonna be more like a little podcasty moment, but there will be visuals of things I'm talking about. So it's not fully a podcast, sit down, just listen audio type of situation. Down in the comments, tell me like your top 3 things you were excited about this year that you did. That could be an accomplishment, that could be a vacation, that could be personal growth. I don't want this to just be like, hey guys, this is my life. Thank you so much for listening. Like that Hilary Duff sound, like I don't want it to be like that. It's hard because I don't have anyone here to physically talk to. I'm gonna update you on my life. I wanna hear an update on your life. And I really do plan on being back more, posting consistently going forward. This, I just needed to like clear the air, update everything. Okay, let's start with January. A great place to start. I just wrapped 2 series online. So on more of the short form social media side, I had wrapped the 50 days of outfits. And then on the long form, like YouTube side of things, I had done Vlogmas. And I really enjoyed both, but I will never do both of them at the same time again. I have this crazy idea because I want to do a feral girl fall series going forward after this life update video. But then I also have an idea about something that I decided will go starting in January. Once the fall is done, then I'll go into like more Christmas related things or holiday related things for a month. And then I will do the other series that I want to do because I learned from last December that you don't want to be doing 2 series at the same time. It was a lot of work. I was very stressed. I didn't enjoy the holidays. I also don't have a team who does my editing. So this is like a one-woman show. I'm coming up with the concepts. I am filming, I am editing, I am posting, I'm interacting, and then I'm doing it all over again. So to do a daily situation like that was just a lot for one person. So I wrapped both those series. I spent a few days just recovering. And then I think it was the 4th of January was the 1-year anniversary of the Gratis Groupchat, which is my podcast. And I want to talk about the Gratis Groupchat a little bit because it is kind of the elephant in the room. I did a full first season, 10 episodes by myself. And then in season 2, I decided to interview people. And the thing that was tough was, again, like I really enjoyed the interview process. I really just want to thank the people who I interviewed in season 2, specifically 2 people who their episodes never went live, and I'll get to that in a second. But Dr. Anupama Pasricha from St. Kate's, she was my professor at St. Kate's for fashion merchandising and fashion and apparel. She's now the Dean of Business there. And then my friend Marcus Stiles, he owns 2 businesses locally in the Twin Cities. He owns Haven, which is a directory where he brings nonprofits and creators and brands together and helps them network and get to know each other so that they can have better opportunities to work together. And then he also does Visioncy, which is like his brand creator company. I always say his branding company, but that's not really what it is. He helps you develop and create your brand. So I'll show some visuals here from when he helped me this past spring with Instant Nostalgia, which is my media company I'll get to next. But he did all of the brand work for that. He built out the colors, he did the font, he did the logo. Both of them are so knowledgeable. Both of them are just wonderful people. They gave me their time to do the interviews. They had really insightful, intellectual conversations. But I just got to a point where I was 2 episodes into the Gratis Groupchat and I was just worn out. As I I just said, I'd gone through 2 series and then I jumped right into doing season 2. It just got to be so much and I felt really overwhelmed by the work that I was needing to do in order to get that out every single week. Something I think people also don't know is I do full-time content creation, but I also do a part-time job, because the reality of being in the creative space is sometimes you have to take on other roles in order to make ends meet and to pay bills. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that does eat up 2 days of my week. And then my weekends usually are filled as well. So I only have 3 days to dedicate to work. And I recently opened up about this in a video. I don't know, it might be going out like a day before this video, the same day, I don't know. But I talked about how I really realized I needed to get more disciplined this year in saying, like, these are my work hours. I will not have social time in my work hours. I'm going to dedicate my time to working, and really just doing that for myself as an entrepreneur, creating that stability and not feeling like I'm missing out on a bunch of different things. But before that, I was trying to set up interviews and times and schedules with people. It'd be like 7 p.m. when we'd start doing the interview, and then I'm trying to also watch, like, making sure everything's recording on my computer. I'm trying to make sure my video camera is still recording. The filming process just got to be really weighed down and bogged me down, and then the editing process was even worse. And it just got to a point where I was like, I need a break. Like, I thought it was just going to be like a month-long break, and then I'd come back and I'd have episodes and maybe have like a backlog situation where I wasn't feeling like I needed to have something up every week and I was editing it the day of. But it just got to a point where I was like, something needs to be dropped. And so unfortunately the Gratis group chat did get dropped, and I've since apologized to both Anu and Marcus, because I just felt like I never want them to feel like I wasted their time or I didn't value their input or their interview and what they brought to the table. But it just was too overwhelming. One big theme of 2024 is it was really a year of saying yes, which is amazing because then I had all these crazy opportunities that I'll get into. But then at the same time, it really took away from being able to focus on my work and create some of the things I wanted to create. So the Gratis group chat turned 1 in January, and then I'm not saying it's not like it's forever gone, but it has almost been a year and I don't really think about it. I think about wanting a podcast. Like, I love sitting here and just chatting, but I feel like also I can do that with YouTube. I felt like I was being almost influenced, because I wasn't being pressured, but I was being influenced to go the route of a traditional podcast. And I just don't know if that's the route I'd want to do, because I don't have a team behind me. And it's a lot more work, and that means I'd have to drop other things in order to do that. And I just really like the stuff I'm doing right now. Going along with the idea of just saying yes to everything, I've also traveled so much this year, but I feel like I have had no stability like in my daily life. I think a lot of the unsettled feeling that I'm feeling overall between personal life and content creation and showing up online and editing and all of those things has to do with a stable schedule. And this year has just been such a whirlwind in a fun way, but it's been so unstable in so many different ways. And I feel like I really thought the fall was gonna slow down, and it hasn't. And so I'm just trying to create better boundaries for November and December where I have less going on. But with saying yes, and with traveling so much, my first trip was at the end of January, the last week. I went to Nashville. And I've talked about this on short form socials before, but Nashville was just so amazing because I went there for something called The Send, which is a Christian conference. And that was near the end of the week. So Angie and I flew in on a Sunday. And then from, I think it was like Wednesday to Saturday was the Send week. And then the Send itself, the actual big event, was on Saturday, but I had to come home for something else, which I'll get to in a second. But when we landed, I remember we got our rental car and we were driving to the house that we were going to stay at. And I saw a sign for Dollywood, and I told Angie, I was like, oh my gosh, my grandma and my mom love Dolly Parton. Like, it would be such a dream to like go to Dollywood and meet her someday. Like, that'd be crazy. You know, you're just kind of saying things off the cuff. We get to the house, we're talking with all these girls. I didn't know anybody. Angie only knew like 1 or 2 of the 5 girls that lived in this home. And so we're just talking, getting to know each other, and there's a girl named Danelle, and Danelle works for the production company that works for Dolly Parton. And she goes, just out of the blue, I didn't tell her that Angie and I had this conversation. I didn't even tell her that I was anything about Dolly Parton. I was just like, oh, what do you do for work? She's like, oh, I work in production. This is what I do for my job. And then she was like, yeah, I work for the production team that works for Dolly Parton. Out of nowhere, she goes, yeah, on Tuesday, which was January 30th, Dolly Parton has a pet gala and we need volunteers. And like, would you ever be interested in volunteering, or do you have stuff for the Sun that day? That was the one day that entire week I had nothing going on. I had no obligations. There was like nothing that needed to be done. And I was floored. I was like, God is so good, because he like knew that I just needed to pick me up. I was not doing well that month. And he just knew that like I needed something to get back on my feet, start the year right, and just blow things out of the water. And so I got to do the Dolly Parton Pet Gala, which was so fun. Like her whole team is so cool. They're very professional. One of the craziest days I think I've ever lived in my life. I definitely realized like I don't know if I'd want to work in a live television situation. I don't want to say that to rule it out, but the whole live TV production in front of a live audience wasn't my favorite experience. And a lot of it is basically like telling people to stand here and do this, and then you're gonna go here, and like kind of keeping a schedule. And then the other half of it is people filming and deciding which camera angle to use. So for me, like as a creative person, I learned that maybe that's not necessarily the route I'd want to take for a career, but I thought it was interesting and I was just grateful to be there. Like, I'm sorry, I met Dolly Parton. I was in the presence of like Billy Ray Cyrus, and also weirdly iconic, like he had just married Fire Rose. So that's like a historic event I can reference. And then there was also Jane Lynch was there, Casey and the Sunshine Band, Kristen Cavallari and Jessica Simpson were there. As a girl who grew up in the early 2000s and the 2010s, I was like, what world am I living in that I'm in the same room as these two women? It was so wild. But there was like 15 celebrities. There's probably people I'm forgetting right now, but it was just such a cool event to be a part of, so unexpected, and such a God thing too, that it just worked out with my schedule, and that Danelle even offered, like I didn't even ask. The other thing that happened during this trip that was just absolutely wild was we went out on the Friday for the Sun. We were in downtown, like Broadway Street, Nashville. We're out praying for people, just as like a massive group of believers from all over the country, like went out, prayed for people. It was the craziest thing. And then at the end of it all, we ended up having like a 2-hour conversation with 3 or 4 different people in a Waffle House until like 3 in the morning. And then I had a flight at like 6. So we literally like put her all out there, like gave everyone everything. And then I slept for an hour and got on a plane and came home. And then I immediately went and I shot an event that night for Haus of Sonder, which is like a local agency here, which the event itself is so cool. It was about gathering local artists and local small business owners together and having an event for them. And it was just such a cool concept, but it was just 4 or 5 hours of me gathering content like for the whole night, and then leaving at 10 p.m. and I hadn't slept for like 24 hours almost. But it was so worth it, because that's one of those things where it's like, okay, do I want to sacrifice and like sleep and be mindful of my health, or do I want to say yes to every opportunity that comes my way? And unfortunately, I'm just a girl who deals with FOMO, so I want to say yes to every opportunity that comes my way. Then I had a few weeks to recover. I went with my friend Ani at the end of February to Florida. She did Disney Run, which are races that happen every single day for like 3 days in a row. There's a 5K, 10K, and half marathon. So I got to vlog and capture her whole process of that weekend. She did the 10K, and then the next day she did the half marathon, and it was so cool to be a part of that experience. It's also just surreal because the races don't happen during the day. We were getting up at 2 a.m. every morning. She's like prepping her body to go do these runs, and we were out the door and had to be, I think it started every single morning at, it was either 3 or 4 in the morning. I want to say it was 4, but like we had to be there at 3:15, 3:30 so that she could get in line and get ready for her rounds and like in brackets basically, because you can't have like 100,000 people all running at the same time. So she had to get into her bracket and then go do the race. And it was so surreal to be on the Disney grounds at like the butt crack of dawn, like no sun, none of the rides going, none of the workers there. It's dark, but it was so magical, because you're just walking the grounds of Disney and you're taking the trains back and forth and you're going from park to park trying to keep up, especially with the half marathon. I was moving all around that park. I thought I was gonna just be like sitting for 3 hours and then be like, woohoo, good job, you did it. And instead I was booking it. I was booking it from Epcot to Magic Kingdom and back. And it was a long run for her, but it was also like a lot of movement for me, but I had the best time. It was such a crazy experience. And I just feel like January and February were such wild, one-of-a-kind experiences that I got to be a part of. And I wasn't necessarily the active focus of those experiences, but I got to be kind of in the back seat, like taking it all in, kind of doing the B-roll. You know, it was just so fun. On March 9th, I started something that was very exciting. I have had it in my heart to have people over to my home and to really make my house like a coffee shop. And I really wanted it to be something where it was free. We have good parking in our neighborhood. It's safe. Like you can bring your kids, you can bring stuff to work on. And I just started doing it monthly up until I think September. I tried to do one in September. I had one day I had open and then I got violently ill the night before. I was not gonna go like host 15 people at my house that morning. But I started the coffee shop at my house. It's something I want to continue going back into November and possibly December, given other people's schedules. It would be really fun to do the coffee shop again and start that up. But the coffee shop was just something that had been on my heart for a really long time. I wanted a space that was safe. I wanted people to be able to meet and network or just like connect on a friendship level. I wanted to create a space where people could come and do co-working for free. I just really wanted it to be something that was like attainable, hospitable, and something where people could meet each other if they really wanted to, be social if they wanted to. And that was my goal, was to make people co-mingle and get to know each other and kind of mix my groups. And I'll just speak as a single woman. I feel like a lot of times there's this idea that you don't really mix your groups until you have a birthday or a wedding or a baby shower or a housewarming. And just with where things are at financially for me, but also for the country, like I'm not buying a house anytime soon. I'm not dating anybody, so I'm not getting married anytime soon. I'm not having a baby shower. And so I just wanted something where all the people that I loved could meet each other, but then also they could bring the people that they loved and there would just be like a co-mingling, because Minnesota is really bad. Like, I don't know about other parts of the Midwest, but I feel like Minnesota is really bad at making new friends. People kind of grow up here and stay here in the Midwest, and I just feel like it's something to challenge people to go out of their comfort zone. Then the night of Easter, I was in Washington State at Olympic National Park. There were 10 of us girls who went together, which I think in many other settings would definitely be a disaster. I think just in general, it is hard to organize 10 women or 10 people in general to be able to do something that all of them enjoy and all of them feel included. And you know, there's always going to be some struggles in that sense. But when it came to the girls that I went on this trip with, I think it really speaks to their character and the type of women that they are, that we were able to do a 4-day trip and go through Olympic National Park together and basically be going the entire 4 days and spend all of our time together, and it just went so well. I haven't posted anything from that trip. I think I did one post with pictures from that, and I never really did a vlog. So I don't know if I'll incorporate more footage or make it its own vlog later on, maybe in the fall series, maybe do kind of a focus on like friendships the last year and how they've grown, maybe use that footage for that, I'm thinking. But I just have such beautiful footage and also just funny footage of that time, and I never put it out because I never had time to. The 11th to the 15th of April was Minnesota Fashion Week in the spring, and because I'd done the work for the Haus of Sonder event back in January, I was contacted by one of the organizers named Sade to come and cover the events for Fashion Week. I covered, I think, 3 out of the 6 that they had. I couldn't make it to all of them, just life and obligations, but I got to do 3 events, which was major because Fashion Week is such a big thing here in the Twin Cities. Wait, I didn't even talk about Instant Nostalgia. Oh my gosh. I launched Instant Nostalgia right before Fashion Week, and that is my media and event photography and video business. So I offer services anywhere from doing event photography like the Fashion Week events, where I captured the different booths that were represented and kind of the feeling of the night, who was there, what people wore, making you feel like you lived in the experience of that event. I captured photo and video for Fashion Week events, but then I also do things like I've done wedding videos this year, and I have been able to summarize 9-hour day into 5 minutes and really be able to capture the essence of that wedding day. I also have done baby showers, I've done birthdays, I'm moving more in like the brand launching type of event space or the brand sponsored event space, because I do think that's where more of the money tends to be with brands. But I really do enjoy both sides of the coin. I like doing brand work. I like doing product photos for a product launch. I love doing videos of an event for a brand launch. And so that's what I've been focusing on. A majority of the year is building instant nostalgia from the ground up. If you want to go follow Instant Nostalgia, I would love that. I'll put a link to my social media down below. So I started my business. My first client was technically Minnesota Fashion Week, which was major. And I just was really honored to be able to capture the events and really provide the social content that they needed. And a week later, I did my move. I moved to Burnsville. I lived with Bridget. It was kind of like a duplex, but instead of having like a side-by-side living situation, upstairs and downstairs were separated. And I've never really talked about the details of living there, but it was just a really interesting experience. The house was very cute because it was very mid-century, but a lot of things were very outdated and not kept up. Like, we didn't have a dishwasher. Our pipes would plug up a lot. There was just things where I was really glad I wasn't staying there a long time. I knew moving in on May 1st that I would be there until probably September, because Bridget was getting married in September. And so I knew that it would be a short-term thing. The reason that I moved at this point, and I hadn't moved before that, was because there were life stage things. There was just no reason to move in some situations. And then there was also the kind of unpredictability of life. And then I quit my job and I built a business. And so when it came to finances, when it came to planning, when it came to the fact that I don't spend probably half of every month at my house, I just thought, why would I move out and live somewhere else? Moving was just a very interesting experience because we were not contractually obligated in any way to stay, but then there also weren't standards of living that were contractually spelled out. And so it's my first time not only living with another person who I didn't grow up with, and so there were things that, like, nothing big, but like Bridget and I just would do things differently because we came from different homes and had different experiences and expectations and ways of doing things. So I'm kind of having that growth moment. And then our downstairs neighbors were nice people, but they just they didn't get it. They would smoke, not cigarettes, and it would come up into our space because we were living above them. They would smoke in the house and we asked them not to do that. Bridget gets up early. I work at 7 in the morning, and they would be playing music till midnight, 1, 2 in the morning, really loud, like EDM club music. And we had to have multiple conversations about, like, hey, 9:30 on weekdays, 11 o'clock on weekends, because I serve at church, because we are living adult lives and we need to get sleep. And it just was not, it was an older home. There wasn't a lot of insulation. I just feel like it was my first time really coming to terms with living with people who do not live the way that I do. Not that I'm perfect by any means. I felt like, as someone who is moving out for the first time, I felt more considerate of our neighbors than our neighbors who were a couple. So they'd married each other, like already gone through that growth. They weren't even considerate of us as upstairs neighbors. And so that just made it really tough. But I will say this, I feel like a lot of people, when I moved out, they were like, this is gonna change your life. It's really gonna change who you are. It's gonna change your perception. You're gonna grow, you're gonna mature. And I just don't feel like I really had that. I think I learned to navigate some difficult conversations and some difficult situations, but I don't feel like it made me more of an adult. I don't feel like, now that I've moved back into my parents' house and kind of redone my space and made it more updated to who I am and what I want it to be right now, I don't feel like a child for living back with my parents. And I feel like a lot of the, oh, this is what you're gonna feel, came from people who moved out when they were 20. So I've had to learn how to be an adult and live in a space and pay rent. And like I've had all those growing pains before I moved out. And I just feel like a lot of the advice people gave me wasn't necessarily the most applicable because I'd already learned that stuff before I went to live with Bridget and like live in that house with those neighbors. Another trip I haven't talked a lot about was I went to Nashville for a second time in the year of 2024. At the end of May, I went with my mom as a Mother's Day celebration and kind of gift. She's wanted to go to the K-Love Awards for at least a year now, if not more. And so we decided to make a girls trip out of it. And that was another one where I shared content like on stories in real time, but I have a lot of video and photos and parts of that experience that I haven't really shared. I feel like I need to utilize that at some point in the next couple months because it is good video and it was a really good time and a good trip, but I never got around to editing that vlog and I'm kind of just sitting on footage from that. The K-Love Awards was really interesting, especially as someone who had already gone through the Dolly Parton in front of a live audience production situation. I wasn't working for the K-Love Awards. I wasn't working with their team or doing anything like that. I was just genuinely attending. But it was interesting to watch other people doing the jobs I had done 4 months earlier in the same city for kind of a similar setup in a similar, like this was an award show, but more of a live audience focused event. It also was just a great weekend of worship and I feel like my mom and I just had such a good time. And those types of memories I hope don't get more and more rare, but you know, as you get older, sometimes like life can get so busy and you just don't have time to prioritize your parents as much. And trips like that are really important and really special. June, really nothing happened. I had such a love-hate relationship with June because it is my birthday month and that's always an exciting part of the year. I love birthdays, I love celebrating, and it's also fun when it gets reciprocated to you. But this year I just felt like June needed to be so chill. I went on a social media break. I didn't travel all of June and I really just stayed in the house. I either was like at work, at church, at my parents, or at my apartment, and I had nothing to do. And so it was a great month of slowing down and being in prayer and also kind of getting ready for a trip that I took in July, but it was also such just like a slow, simple month. And when you've been going for 5 months, to slow down and stop everything completely really feels kind of like unstable and unnerving. It was a difficult month, but it also was a really growing month. And I feel like a lot of things that I'm doing right now are a result of the time that I took in June to really reflect on my life and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to be doing and the time that I took in prayer and who I prayed for. And so I don't think it was a waste of time. It just was a really weirdly beautiful, hard month to go through. July was the Argentina trip for Ani's 35th birthday. Myself and our friend Zelf, and Ani obviously as the birthday girl, we went on a trip to Buenos Aires and then Mendoza and then back to Buenos Aires. It was a little over a week. It was like 9 or 10 days it ended up being, so we had to extend a day. There was like, it was right before CrowdStrike. We ended up getting home like hours before the CrowdStrike situation happened with the flights. And so we were really lucky, but there was already so much instability with the airports and getting flights even before that happened that we ended up having to extend our trip another day, and then we got into the US and it was messy, but we found our way home. And then immediately CrowdStrike happened and I stopped complaining to God about how long it took to get home because some people were stranded for like 3 days. So I think God really puts those things into perspective for you. I had no expectations about Argentina. I had a few places I wanted to go to that I had suggested to our group. We all had things that we really wanted to do, but it fully exceeded any expectations I think I could have had. It was so fun. I just had such a good time with the girls. And we ate great food and we drank great wine and we just toured wineries and we sat around eating like bread and cheese. We did a fantastic food tour in Buenos Aires. I can put information about that down below. We did tons of wineries in Mendoza. We had an 8-course wine and food pairing dinner at a place called Centauro in Mendoza. We went to the Dulce de Leche store. We did a sunrise sail. We went to a bunch of like historic sites. We thrift and vintage shopped. I got some amazing amazing pieces. This bag is like the love of my life, and this is just one of many things I got on that trip, but she really, like, I've never seen anything like her. I saw her in like a curated secondhand store, and a lot of the other stuff was very, very expensive, so I was like, I'm not even gonna look at it, like, I don't know. And then I just kept seeing it like up on the shelf. I'd be talking to Zelf or Ani about like, oh, I like that jacket, or I like what you're trying on, whatever, and I was just kind of standing there waiting for them. And finally I was like, take it down off the shelf, I want to look at it. And I just fell in love, and it was like 20, I think it was 20 pesos, 20 or 30, which is like nothing. This craftsmanship, I'm just floored. The Argentina trip, I've been telling people, was so financially doable. I think for like the 9 or 10 days we were there, it was under $2,000 a person. If you wanted to bring children, it's super safe, great food, good time. Cannot recommend it enough. And then August was like the busiest month of my life. Oh my gosh, I don't think I had one day off in August, and maybe even September too. The first week of August, my cousins Nick and Kim and their girls came and visited, and I just have a blast with them when they come. We always have a good time. I just pray that they keep coming every single year for their family trip. The week between Nick and Kim leaving and then my sister came the third week of August. My sister and my nephew came to visit, and eventually my brother-in-law came along as well. But that week in between the two family members, or like two family groups visiting, I had to move because our landlord was like, we originally were gonna move out on September 3rd, and he was like, if you move out a week earlier, like I will cut your utilities cost in half. And I was like, do not say another word, I'm out. So I literally like picked up and left in like a 2-day period. Like picked up everything I had and I left, and then the stuff that I couldn't take with me, I called Bridget and Will and I was like, what time works for you to get this stuff out of the house? And they were like 6 a.m. on this day, on this like Saturday. So that was just like, it was so wild. I was painting this room. I was genuinely going through everything I've ever owned ever. I was sorting it out. I was donating things. I was selling stuff on Depop. There were things I had to throw away. There were things I was like donating to family members, or like that family members and friends wanted, that we gave to the church, that we gave to like Salvation Army. I'm going through like every piece of house item in our basement. I'm analyzing every piece of clothing that I have, trying to get this room in order for me to live and move back in. I'm moving things from the other house. I mean, I just have some of the wildest like pictures and videos of that time because I was so mentally unstable, because I just did not have a stable living situation anywhere for about like 7 days. Literally the day after I finished moving back into my parents and got everything almost settled, I had everything in that room done. The next day, my sister and my nephew come into town. We did the fair for 2 days. I also shot for Hilary Kline. She did a segment with WCCO for makeup for the fair, like how to have, you know, beautiful makeup all day at the fair. So I got to capture that behind the scenes of her kind of getting into that content creation, content that I want to be creating for instant nostalgia. So that basically took up my whole month between like 2 family member visits, moving, also working. Like it just got to be a lot. September 1st, I captured my first wedding for someone that I like never met before. I've done other wedding recap videos or kind of like social media content for weddings for family and friends. And I got to do a wedding for Hope and John. Shout out to all of the people who made that possible. I'm gonna link their information below, like the wedding coordinator, the photographer, people who made the day so easy for me as somebody stepping in for the first time. Both the photographer and the wedding coordinator were like the sweetest gals. We just had all this conversation about like being women who own their own businesses, how nobody teaches you like what you need to do. They were so helpful. They were actually informative, and I really want to give them a shout out, and that hopefully they'll get more business from me shouting them out in this video. The 7th of September was Bridget and Will's wedding. So unfortunately at this point, Bridget and I had moved out. We were no longer roommates and I was missing her. And so it was kind of nice to like go through all that chaos and then just have a week of filming a wedding, being in a wedding, having 2 celebrations to kick off the end of summer was really fun, and being able to celebrate Will and Bridget, of course, was such a treat. Will's dad gave like, I hate speeches, okay? I hate speeches at weddings. I think they're so boring. I think they're so like mediocre in general and like not cute. Will's dad killed it. He gave one of the best speeches I've ever heard in my life, and I just feel like it was because it came from the heart and it was original. So August was filled with a bunch of different like familial, friend, moving, like exciting things, but also kind of like obligations and time frame. And then September was like all working. I did not really love September. A really exciting thing that happened in September was being able to collaborate with OliPop and do a whole campaign with them. I really felt like I proved to myself that that is work that I can do. I think people really enjoyed that it wasn't just like a typical like, here's a can of pop, here's a day in my life, and this is the pop I drink. I think people really enjoyed that it had a concept and it was very colorful and it was very fun, and there was a lot of thought and like time put into it. And Zelf, absolutely, like I sent her the mood board and she killed it. I cannot stress this enough that Zelf absolutely slayed. And then I did a separate one the next day for like 1 hour with the pop can curlers. I love the concept. I love the whole thing. And I want to be doing more stuff like that. And then what I just experienced in October was being an ambassador for Fashion Week in the spring. I was invited to shoot as like an event photographer, and then for this fashion week I was invited to be an ambassador, and then that's going to carry over for spring 2025. I was just like so honored. I want to give a shout out to Minnesota Fashion Week, to the organizers, Jana, Sarah, Sade. I don't know who else is included in that. I'm sorry if I don't have your name, but like all the organizers who put that on. Maury's Auto Group, I think, is a huge sponsor of them. Thank you for putting on these events and like creating this space for creative people in our local community. And thank you so much for allowing me to be an ambassador to represent that. But that is kind of the update of where I'm at now. This year has been big. This year has been a lot of me saying yes. And this year has had like a lot of blessings in my work life, in my personal life. And it's just been really growing, and I'm excited for where I'm going to be going next. This year has been so about living spontaneously, saying yes, like just taking every opportunity I can. But with that, as I mentioned earlier, there just hasn't been like really any stability. I feel like all of my friendships to a point are not as strong as they were at the beginning of the year because I haven't had time to dedicate my time to friends as much as I would like. And like also family too. Like I'm really close with Nick and Kim, but like they came to visit and I just felt like I couldn't give 100% to them. It's so nice to look ahead and be like, there's nothing. And like there's nothing on my calendar. I'm just so pleased. Like my weekends are booked in October, but my weekdays are pretty open. I'm just thrilled for what's to come. If you're still watching this, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for like sticking it out, because I definitely know when I'm following YouTubers, if they don't post for a month, I'm like, where the hell are you? Like, why are you posting? Tell me about your life. What's happening? And I obviously don't think I'm like the most important person in your sphere, but I just feel like creators need to be consistent, and it's been such a hard year to try and hold that consistency and juggle everything. And so I just want to thank you, like if you're still watching this video, if you are still supporting my page and subscribe to it, that just means a lot. That just means a lot that you guys care about my engagement, that you care about my life, that you're still following the story of like what God is doing. And I really hope to make up with vlogs in the next few weeks what I couldn't do and didn't have the bandwidth to do the first 9 months of this year. I want to end this video by encouraging you, if you have a dream for a business or a brand, or a dream to do something different, to move somewhere new, to start something, to sing, to do something creative, to paint. If you have a dream to do something like that and you're kind of afraid of like, what will people think, or how will that look, or what's gonna happen, just say yes to a bunch of things till you figure it out. Like it is a lot of trial and error. It's never as scary as you think it's gonna be. And usually it's just a lot of fun. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video. This has been so good catching up. I love you guys. Tell me what you're doing. Tell me about your lives. Update me. Even if we know each other like in real life, I just feel like I said, I haven't been able to like catch up with friends and like give as much as I would like to them. If you are a friend from my real life, like hit me up, girl. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Okay. I love you guys. I'll see you in the next vlog.